You don't know what a wedge is. You don't know what a wedge is. We should start this episode, or more accurately, I would like to start this episode by just checking in with everyone. In the UK, it is dark at 4 in the afternoon, which is upsetting, and we are, 3/4 of the way through a national lockdown, less than that now. And so I just wanted to just make sure everyone's looking after themselves in this time. I have an annual experience of feeling somewhat depressed when the sun goes away. And I have like a what I call a happy lamp, but it's a seasonal affective disorder lamp thing, a sad lamp for treating it. But the point I want to make is daylight is important. And I want to encourage everyone to try and go outside as much as you can, get as much away from people outside, go for walks in the middle of nowhere if you can. Spend some time outside in the sunlight. If you've got any control over your working environment, try and set yourself up so that you're in a window and facing a window, and stuff like that. You can buy these sad lamps, these happy lamps, which I genuinely do think help. If you want a project to do as well, what you can do is you can get high CRI LEDs that are very powerful. And then if you stick those at the focal point behind like a Fresnel lens or something, you can collimate the light. And if you you can make like a window shaped thing of that, and it does a surprisingly good job of simulating the effect of sunlight in a room if you have a bright enough LED. And I'll stick a link in the show notes to a YouTube video where someone took this to the extreme with some huge radar dish thing and did a reflector, put a light in the focal point of that, and did an amazing job of simulating daylight. So if you want something to do, you can cheer yourself up with a project and daylight simulating lights.
I feel the need to interject and point out that not everyone enjoys the weird shit you enjoy. I love how you're this is the best project for everyone ever. Let's make a light.
I'm just saying that, our audience is probably more likely than many audiences to find that interesting. So if you want a project to do, that is an option.
That is extremely fair.
The most important thing, though, is like I said, just to just check in with yourself. I don't know if I like that phrase or not, but just have so my experience every year is that this really sneaks up on me. It gets to about the middle of November, and then I suddenly realise, I feel really crap all the time, and I don't really know why. And it's yes, it's because the sun is setting at 4 in the afternoon. And then that's when I get the light out. And I sort of forget about it every year because it sneaks up really slowly as the light fades. So I would just encourage you to think about how you're feeling at the moment, and just make sure that you are not just spending all of your time cooped up inside, not doing anything. Try to go outside for walks away from people. And if you're near people, wear a mask. That's all.
I have nothing substantive to add, but I support this entire message. And that wasn't meant to sound as corporate as it did, but here we are.
I'm glad I have your endorsement.
Shall we get back into our regularly scheduled programming by complaining about YouTube?
YouTube. The irony of this being that we're going to be live on YouTube in a moment, but YouTube...
we're on a clock. We need to get going.
YouTube has announced some changes, and they're going to start putting adverts on unpartnered channels. And so you may suddenly find more ads on YouTube, and unlike the recent edition of more ads, this will only put money in Google's pocket. So at some point next year, you might suddenly see adverts on Spinnerproof episodes. And I want you to know that we receive no money for that, or we will receive no money for that. And it might also be enough for us to take our podcast off of YouTube again, because I don't really like the idea of someone else making money off of our hard work. Yeah,
and let's be real here. The amount of money being made would be infinitesimally small.
It's the principle of the matter.
It is entirely the principle. I must admit, part of me does go, well, they are hosting all of our stuff for free, and maybe they should be able to monetize that very slightly. But I also sort of think, well, actually, they have to do that for their business model to work. If there was no stuff on YouTube, YouTube wouldn't be profitable anyway. But yeah, we have both sort of agreed that if that happens, it's a situation in which we might decide that the podcast is no longer on YouTube. I think the video stuff would still stay, because let's face it, where else is that going to live?
I have thought about what it would take to host video on spinnerproof.com.
Because of course you have.
The answer is more effort than I'm currently willing to put in. So yes, I agree. The video stuff will probably stay on YouTube, but not the audio stuff.
But yeah, considering we're basically flagrantly misusing YouTube by having those audio-only episodes up anyway, which, by the way, if that's how you listen to Spinnerproof, don't. Not as in don't listen, don't do it that way. Do it through a podcast player or the website or literally anything else. Yeah, I will burn it to CD and mail it to you if you insist. I can't do that. I don't have those facilities, but Sam might. Who knows?
I mean, I do have the ability to burn CDs.
Yeah, which means that if people want it on CD, you'll burn it and send it to them because you're a nice guy.
I have no comment on the matter.
But yeah, that's definitely a situation that could come up. Do you mind if I roll straight on, because we're up against a scheduled live stream here?
Oh, who cares if we're late?
I care. I care deeply.
You can move on. Like, it's.
If you have more to say, then let's have more to say. I don't mind.
I mean, the only thing I wanted to add about YouTube monetizing our stuff is, yes, they would be covering hosting costs and stuff like that, which is fine. If YouTube offered the sort of channel owners a way of saying, look, let Spinnerproof pay YouTube so that you don't put ads on our stuff, that would be something I would consider, maybe. But I will also just point out that we already pay for hosting somewhere else, and so I don't think we gain anything by being on YouTube. Even if that option existed, I doubt we'd take it. But it would be a good option for other people, I think.
I do think it's nice that our stuff, by being on YouTube, has the potential to kind of survive Spinnerproof itself, if that makes sense. To sort of live beyond it.
Why do you think that I'm going to stop paying for hosting?
I don't know. Things happen. Yeah, there's plenty of situations in which that could be a thing. And it would be no huge loss to the world. But I do like knowing that there's basically a Spinnerproof backup online that is accessible. Well. But not to the point where I'm going to try and keep it on there if YouTube start being dicks. So
maybe we should submit it.
Start,
yeah. Maybe we should submit Spinnerproof to archive.org.
I mean, for the good of history, we should.
I'm sure there are people who are listening who have already downloaded and archived every single episode of Spinnerproof, so I think we'll be fine.
You're giving them sort of permission to re-upload it if it ever all disappears?
No, because that would be in breach of our copyright.
Oh, no, not our copyright.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, we automatically get copyright on our own work, and if people to go and share it out in the world, that would be in breach of that. We have given no permission. This is not copyleft work. This is still copyrighted. So don't be re-uploading our stuff. But if you want to back it up for personal use, then whatever. I can't stop you.
You literally can't.
No.
Anyway, moving on to a Tunkty follow-up, I have 2 short announcements. Announcements. That's how that word works. Announcement number 1. During the previous episode, some listeners and readers of the show notes may have noticed that I referred to Lockjaw's rear plough as a wedge. I would like to go on record stating that was a lie. It is not a wedge. It has almost none of the features of a wedge. And no matter what may happen in the future, it will never become a wedge. It's a plough, and I'm sorry. The irony of the next one being about defining parts of robots is not lost on me. I just want to say that the Malice team are awesome. 2 team members reached out about last episode saying that A, they appreciated our kind words, and B, sort of giving a little bit of sort of info on the robot and the whole sort of drum disc thing. I will link the tweet from Bunny in the show notes. The other was a private message, so I won't share it. But yeah, great team. I know I'm not the first person, or we're not the first people that have had this experience of them sort of reaching out to sort of content creators, people in general, are just being awesome. So if they didn't already have my support, they've really earned my support.
I really don't like being referred to as a content creator.
Well, why do you think I keep doing it?
Oh dear, I'm glad the Malice team are cool, though. We appreciate you.
I should probably send you the message I was sent, because you haven't seen it yet.
No, if people only send stuff to Ryan, I won't see it. I will say, I seem to have developed this sort of persona of never looking at follow-up. I do read all the tweets that will get sent to Spinnerproof or me. Like, send tweets to the Spinnerproof account, and then we can both see it.
I did find it interesting that Bunny tweeted me and not sort of Spinnerproof or you. But I think it was also the same episode where you literally told people to never tweet you. So that may have been a small part of it, you know.
Look, right, okay. Here are the rules, right? If you tweet the Spinnerproof account, that's fine. Like, I will see it. If you tweet directly at me, I will see it, and I'm more likely to block/mute people. So just tweet the Spinnerproof account. It's not to say I will block you if you tweet me. You're allowed to tweet me. It's an open Twitter account for a reason. I'm just saying that I'm a bit more heavy-handed with the mute button on my own account than I am the Spinnerproof one.
I love how your view of online communication is one where you need to tell people preemptively that you like blocking them.
Well, look,
you are definitely assuming the worst, aren't you?
I'm also just trying to set a good example for other people who are online. There is nothing wrong. Like the block and mute buttons and stuff, these exist for a reason, and you should use those tools.
How has this become so negatively slanted?
Because I'm here. Please tweet us. We want the attention.
We need the affirmation.
We certainly do.
Without you, we are nothing. Right. It's crunch time. Retuncti ends today.
Oh.
Not words I expected to get to say. We kick things off with Lockjaw versus Apollo. I should point out we're in the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals, Lockjaw versus Apollo. Opening statements, Ryan. What do you reckon?
Unsurprisingly, both of these robots have got here through positive odds. Both have had sort of one fight where they haven't quite had the best possible odds, but overall they've kind of curb-stomped their way here. We're in the BattleBots arena, which I think disadvantages Apollo, but that doesn't mean I know where to go with this. What are you thinking? Yeah,
so my gut reaction was I think this is in favour of Lockjaw, just. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe not even just. Maybe it's obviously in favour of Lockjaw. Because I think Lockjaw can knock out Apollo.
Oh, absolutely. But I think Apollo can give Lockjaw trouble as well, particularly just looking at the sort of relative shapes of their front ends.
Yeah.
In a front-on-front collision, I think Apollo gets under fairly easily, because that very tip of the flipper is narrow enough to go between the forks. Although I guess that does still leave basically every other situation favouring Lockjaw in terms of being able to get around from the side, the corner, the rear. Have we really seen Apollo against a sort of bigger, nastier vert? It went up against Sabretooth, but I think that might have been quite a poorly Sabretooth, as I recall. Or at least it was the Series 10 Sabretooth, which is a bit, nah.
I'm not sure. But I can't, there's nothing immediately springing to mind of like proper terrifying vert here for Apollo.
It was up against Aftershock along with Eruption. And Aftershock, hurt it quite badly. But that was after it got stuck under the floor, so it's not the purest of situations to judge it on,
I think this is quite likely to go the distance, actually. I think there's a fairly good chance that it would go the distance and then become a judge's decision. And
almost any judge's decision probably favours Lockjaw, let's be real here.
Yeah. So the things...
Unless the weapon's gone down. But
yeah.
we don't... I don't like judging too much on that kind of reliability.
Yeah, who knows how that's gonna be? I don't know. It could happen. I think it's not a landslide in either direction. I maybe like a 5-2 maybe in favour of Lockjaw. Put that out there. See how you feel.
I was going 5-2 in my head as well.
Okay, excellent. Oh, look at that. We agree.
Oh no. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Lockjaw. 6 and 7 for Apollo.
Okay.
I was expecting more of a fight there, but here we are.
Yeah, well, there you go. Nice and easy. It is a 5.
Oh, our decisions mattered. No.
Oh, no. It's
Do
fine.
not want.
Look, what I have discovered with the feedback recently is there is nothing we can do that won't upset someone.
And most of our decisions, I think, if we look back on them in a year, we'll probably think we're bollocks anyway. So we can't even please ourselves.
Indeed. Up next, we have Tombstone versus Expulsion. It is a 6, which means that Tombstone has won.
Thank fuck for that. Do we luxuriate for a moment in the circumstances of this fight? Do you want to give a detailed blow-by-blow of what happens?
Tombstone expels expulsion from the entire tournament and we never see it again.
I'll take it. Well then, are you ready for me to move on?
Yes.
Next up we have Minotaur versus Rapid. I'll let you give your opening statement on this one.
I don't feel like I'm convinced about one way or the other. I feel like it's not going to be a landslide, but I do think that it is in Minotaur's favour.
I really want to be able to make a case for this being Rapid's fight, but I don't think I can. Rapid is very low to the floor, I'll give it that. But Minotaur has the fork set up, and this isn't the version that was wheeling uncontrollably. They're good at staying low enough to the ground. And all they need is... Well, actually, against most flippers, I'd say all they need is one good hit to the front of the flipper to really mess it up. But Rapid did have that leading edge that would sort of chip rather than curl. So maybe less of an issue for them than many others?
I don't know. I think Rapid can take the beating, but I think it's similar to the last fight where there's just not a lot of advantages for Rapid in this arena against this robot.
Yeah, I think it can perform well for a full 3 minutes here. It's just what it's actually going to do with its weapon that's going to win it the fight actively. There are, compared to Apollo, I think there's a better chance of them using one of the areas of the arena that they can actually use to score a KO. Because they are far more optimised as a design for getting an opponent on the wedge and taking them somewhere. So I think it's not entirely unreasonable to think that they might be able to use one of the small looter zones or the sort of area above the screws as well as a place to actually get Minotaur out or stuck. I think there's a realistic enough chance of that happening to say that they at least have a route to victory that isn't just opponent breaks down a bit or nasty landing breaks weapon. But I feel like, with hindsight, I think we were generous to Apollo. Because 5-2 feels fair here, with all of that having been said. Which means that really 6-1 would have been fair against Apollo.
No.
Because this isn't 4-3, even with those things in place.
Didn't even make it a whole episode before regretting a roll that we did. I don't know. I don't think either of these fights is 6-1. I think that's too far.
I think Lockjaw Apollo might be.
No. Well, it's too late now. We've done it.
Although I guess the unreliability at times of the weapon in particular on Lockjaw maybe makes it tolerable.
Lockjaw's weapon has broken more than I can remember Minotaur's breaking.
I think the only time this version of Minotaur's weapon broke was the Tombstone fight. Or was the Gigabyte fight also this season? We shouldn't have done this after 2019. It's confused everything.
It's all too much. Look, right, I think we're in agreement that this is in Minotaur's favour. I'm happy with a 5-2, and if you want to push this to be better odds in favour of Minotaur as compared to the Lockjaw Apollo fight for some reason, then I will not fight you.
5-2 is the new 4-3. It's 5-2.
Okay.
It's also the new 6-1.
It is, drum roll please, a 3.
Oh.
Oh.
That is the end of the Robot Wars involvement in the entire tournament.
Aww.
I do think if Apollo Lockjaw or Minotaur Rapid are in the Robot Wars arena, we flip those odds.
Yeah, I think it changes a lot being in a different arena, but in this arena, in the BattleBots arena, I do think it's in favour of the vertical spinners.
Yeah, it's just a shame that all of those Robot Wars robots seem to end up on that side of the bracket, or that side of their drawers, should I say. I don't really know how brackets work.
And yet, here we are, doing a bracket.
Hey, I would have loved to do a random draw each time. FA Cup rules, best rules. But Americans don't understand these things. Right. Are you ready to intro this one? Because this is going to be fun.
Ooh. Up next, we have Son of Waiachi versus Bite Force.
I've made statements, inconsistent statements in the past, about the lack of robots I would give anything other than a 6-1 against Bite Force. Apparently, I'd said that I would give Storm 2 something other than a 6-1, and then gave it a 6-1 anyway. I'm sure there's a reason that I was right somewhere. Maybe I was thinking about it in a different arena or whatever. Son of Waiachi is not getting a 6-1 here. That is not happening.
I agree. I would love, just to be contrary, I'd love to try and talk you into a 1-6 here, but no, I agree. I think Son of Waiachi deserves more than a 1.
Do you think we have to justify that?
Son of Waiachi hits really hard, and Bite Force is not impervious to damage. Like, I know it's a robust robot, it's reliable, but we have seen it take beatings in the past, and it does degrade in performance over time as a result of that beating. So I think Son of Waiachi might deliver big enough hits to do it. I mean, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we give this in favour of Son of Waiachi. I still think that Bite Force is likely to win, but I think it stands at least a 2 in probability here.
Bite Force obviously runs the wedge here. You know, ground clearance isn't a factor whatsoever. It's purely about trying to take those hits. But that wedge, as well designed as it is, still diverts the weapon into their weapon. And there is plenty of chance of them getting sideswiped rather than them uppercutting Son of Waiachi. And as you say, with the power contained in that weapon, you know, it is a heavy weapon. And it is a very sort of wide, blunt force that it delivers. There is every chance of that doing some nasty damage to the weapon or even one of the sort of bulkheads around it. I do have full faith in Bite Force to take the lightest hits possible by getting in there quickly. Bite Force will spin up faster. It's quick across the box. It's very well driven. He's going to get the box rush in to some degree and try and do some damage along the way. But it's not like he's going to easily get to the body of Son of Waiachi. I think it's quite a difficult KO to get. It would happen. I'm sure it would happen. But there's going to be a couple of hits taken first, you feel. And that's where the opportunity lays for Son of Waiachi.
Yeah. I think this is a 2 and 5.
Unfortunately, I think this is also a 2 and 5. And it really annoys me that every episode we seem to just give the same odds over and over again. But as I say, I can't give this as 1 and 6. 3 and 4 feels generous. I think 2 and 5 it has to be.
That's what it is, yeah. And, you know, this is the nature of the lineups, I guess. It's just, yeah, interesting.
How did we used to make this take so long?
It's going to be such a short
Or was it just the
episode.
3 ways that took forever?
I think those took forever because there was the process of trying to eliminate a robot was really hard. I think that took a lot. But I think as well that we're also possibly a bit more confident, or I don't know, I feel like the odds are more obvious. Like, this just is just, to me anyway, obviously a 2 and 5. I didn't have to think about it a huge amount to get there. But
I'm almost trying to talk myself out of obvious results just for the sake of conversation, which is not the right way to do this. So I'm glad we've agreed quickly.
okay, I'm doing a roll.
So it's 1 and 2 for Son of Waiachi, the rest for Bite Force. I wouldn't mind an upset here.
It is a 2!
Oh, thank God for that. How boring would it be if Bite Force won this?
It's a 2!
Jeez, no, not letting that happen. Thank you. Robot that I used to passionately despise. I should point out, it's not just because of this that I've stopped that. I've grown to like the robot on the team a lot more over the last couple of seasons in general, but oh, thank you.
I'm glad we weren't streaming that one. That would have been too much of a spoiler. What a pleasant upset that was. I mean, you know, it's a shame to see Bite Force go, but it's also quite nice for the rest of the tournament that Bite Force is not in it anymore.
Again, I think this is something that we see in BattleBots in general, is a lot of people are kind of rooting against Bite Force just because they want to see someone new win it. And while that must kind of suck if you are anyone from the Bite Force team, not just Paul, I think it's an understandable reaction to watching someone or something dominate. Yeah, we see it in other sports as well. Once a team starts doing well, you do get a sort of little band of people who don't dislike them, they just dislike the same thing happening. And I'm soapboxing to fill time as I move slides around and probably saying things that either don't need saying or that I'll actively regret, so I'm going to stop. I'm also really struggling to move these slides where I want them.
This is a first, I think. Well, no, not quite a first, but this is the point where now, because we're doing more than one round in an episode, Ryan has to spend a few moments rearranging the slides so that we have the notes for the next round.
Can I please ask you to rearrange the slides? Because doing it on mobile is making me feel very claustrophobic right now.
Okay, what goes where?
So Lockjaw, Tombstone, Minotaur, Son of Waiachi.
Lockjaw, Tombstone, Minotaur, Son of Waiachi.
Look how little time that took you. So, semi-finals. Imagine there's been a needlessly long ad break, and we're back, as BattleBots would be, for very important matches.
I can't believe how close we are to the end of this.
I know. I almost don't like it.
This is wild. I can't believe we're talking about the same robots twice in an episode.
For what it's worth, we're going to long it out with a third place playoff. That'll keep the runtime up for you.
Okay.
Semi-final number 1 then is Lockjaw versus Tombstone.
Now, I think this is a more interesting fight. I'm not sure at all who I'd give this in favour of, actually. No, why am I saying that? I've immediately changed my mind. This is Tombstone's fight. What am I on about?
There's a difficulty with this fight, which is that it happened in 2019. And we, of course, as people who started this before 2019, this was a few weeks worth of filler before 2019. We should be disregarding that. However,
I just want to, before you carry on and tell me what happened in that fight, I want to make clear I have no memory of that fight, and that little bit there of me going, I don't know who it is, and then going, this is Tombstone, that's legitimately the way that my brain went there. So I don't know how it went in 2019.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that, but I have now. So carry on.
It's all good. By the rules of what we're doing, we should disregard that. But the changes sort of within these robots between those two seasons, there obviously were incremental improvements, but I'd be willing to say that they were, if not the same robots, they were robots that have been improved by about the same amount each. So I have no reason to think it would have gone any differently in 2018.
Wasn't Tombstone in 2019 still using like a chassis from 2018 and stuff?
I think it was that 2018 was using a chassis from 2017.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough.
And considering Tombstone won it very easily anyway, it's not really the standard of Tombstone that's up for debate there, or the relative changes in Tombstone.
I was trying to think of ways to agree with you that they were probably not too dissimilar between 2018 and 2019 by using the chassis as an example of a thing that was the same. But if that was 2017 and 2018, then my point is moot.
Basically, I don't think a 2018 version of this fight goes any differently to the 2019 version. There was a lot of optimism before the fight that Lockjaw could maybe do it based on the ass plough, which had been so effective against Son of Waiachi. Although, again, I'm not sure how well I'm remembering that fight, and I can't find footage of it, so it might be that it didn't do as much work as I seem to be giving it credit for. But just based on that, there was a sense of, Lockjaw has a way to deal with Tombstone, but what happened was it lost a bunch of wheels anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's what kind of happens when you're all wheels and facing Tombstone.
I feel like this fight is slowly coming back to me. This was like a display of Ray's cunning trickery of like convincing a robot to come in and attack it and then him just spinning around and sideswiping them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is Tombstone's
And we can't
fight.
even say that they would have learned from that mistake.
Well, no, because it hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened, exactly.
Hypothetically, I think that Ray would sit Tombstone somewhere, wait for Lockjaw to attack, and then just sort of spin round and start taking Lockjaw's wheels off.
How prophetic of you. Does this make it a 1 and 6?
Ooh.
In your eyes?
Maybe?
I really struggle to give any competent vertical spinner a 1 and 6, and I know that I'm now going to go back and find out that I've done that multiple times. Actually, you know what? We did it for Monsoon versus Tombstone. We can do it for Lockjaw versus Tombstone. I don't love it, but
this is another
it's
one of those situations where what I want is like a 1.5, but yeah, I think it's got to be a 1.
There are so many bits to hit that really, don't kill it, but cripple its chances.
Yeah.
And it's Tombstone. It's very good at winning fights, isn't it?
It is. Okay, let's do it. 1 and 6.
So for clarity, 1 for Lockjaw, the rest for Tombstone. Here comes our 1 for the day.
No, it's a 4. Tombstone hath won.
So Tombstone into the final, Lockjaw for a cheeky little third place playoff.
In our final semi-final, we have Minotaur versus Son of Waiachi.
My opening comment is yes, please.
Yeah. So I think given the way that we scored the Bite Force fight, I feel like we can't give Son of Waiachi a 1. I don't know if you were planning to or not, but I want to get that out there. Like, we can't go to the extremes, I don't think, in this fight. This has got to be somewhere in the middle.
I think Minotaur has a better chance, a measurably better chance against Son of Waiachi than Bite Force does.
What?
So our main reasoning for that score was the ability that Minotaur has that Son of Waiachi has to sideswipe Bite Force's weapon or weapon sort of structure. Doesn't have the opportunity against Minotaur. It can come in with a heavy-ish impact on the drum. It can come in with a heavy-ish impact on the incredibly thick armour at each end of the drum. But neither of those are a huge issue for Minotaur. It took plenty of those hits against Tombstone before it actually stopped running.
I just feel like there's so much more energy in Son of Waiachi's weapon than Tombstone's. And I know that Minotaur has lots of armour and stuff, but like it's not... is the side armour not aluminium? Which is, I'm not saying that's a weak material at all, but like, I don't know.
It's hella thick aluminium. Like a disgusting thickness of aluminium.
I just don't think...
I'm not saying it has to be 6 and 1.
I don't think it's a 6 and 1. I can't go that far.
I just can't stop thinking of the Poison Arrow fight here. Granted, it was a very good hit from Poison Arrow.
I don't remember that.
So it's a fight where Poison Arrow, which is a drum, launched Son of Waiachi very high in the air indeed, and it landed and didn't move again. It was that sort of true one-hit wonder of a fight that just completely killed Son of Waiachi. There was no 20 seconds of crab walking afterwards. It landed and it was gone.
Yeah, but like that's not going to happen in every fight, is it?
No, but I think it shows the ease with which a drum can get that kind of hit. Because it's this really wide area of tooth, usually with a very small radius as well, meaning that the tooth comes round with much greater regularity. I think it's very difficult for a weapon like Son of Waiachi to avoid being uppercut by it. Most full-body spinners wouldn't want to come up against a drum, and Son of Waiachi is, to all intents and purposes, a full-body spinner. In terms of the function of the weapon, it's the same essential thing.
I'll go as far as a 5 and 2.
I thought you'd only go as far as a 4 and 3, and I was going to take it, but...
Oh, right, 4 and 3. 4 and...
No, that cat's out the bag now. The genie's out of the bottle. The jack is out of the box.
I hear what you're saying about...
Because they don't go back in.
About the thick armour and the drum stuff. So, yeah, I think a 5 and 2. And I look forward to Reddit going mad with how wrong we are.
I was going to say, if anything we've said today is going to make people tell us we're wrong, it will be this one. And I'm open to it. I am open to it.
If I weren't here, if you were just doing this on your own, what would you score this?
Probably 5 and 2. I think I'd be more conservative with these things if I were on my own than I do having you here for pushback. Because I'd be having to create my own pushback. Whereas with this, I can just tell you you're wrong and argue with you.
Brilliant. Right then, 5 and 2 then. We seem to be in agreement on that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Minotaur, 6 and 7 for Son of Waiachi.
It is a 1.
Nothing mattered once again. And you know what I love about this? Everyone seems to have this dream match of Tombstone versus Son of Waiachi, which I've never really seen the appeal of. And even in Retukti terms, we've denied them that.
Not allowed.
It's just occurred to me that what we're left with are 2 matches that have already happened in Retukti canon. And also, wider BattleBots canon. It's not just us.
It's almost as if the the top tier robots get through in most tournaments near the end.
You say that? What's the furthest Lockjaw has got in BattleBots? Top 8?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is Lockjaw overperforming. Our third place playoff then is Lockjaw versus Son of Waiachi. I feel at this point it would be appropriate to quickly look back through the fights that they've had to get here.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm worried that we've overrated Lockjaw on the way here a little bit.
Okay.
So it had traction at 5-1, seems fair. Concussion at 5-2, 5-2-4, which I don't know. I think I'm still on board with that, just.
Mm-hmm.
The Keg, 6-1, obviously. Valkyrie, 5-2. And then, of course, Apollo, or Apollot, as you've written it, also 5-2. Not the toughest route here, I suppose.
No, but it's. I would say that Valkyrie and Apollo, they're pretty big robots. Concussion, I think, is no pushover. I know we've given them all fairly. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about these odds that we've given it so far.
I think the Valkyrie one was based on spin-up time and the knowledge that that version of Valkyrie was the very first version. It did have a lot of sort of teething problems that you would expect a robot like Lockjaw to be able to capitalise on. Whether that's a justification we gave at the time, I don't know, but it's the justification I'm giving now. I think all of those are pretty fair. Son of Waiachi, meanwhile, had Cranky and Miss Nightshade, which it came through at 6-1. It had Crustacean, which it came through at 6-1. It had Hypothermia, which it came through at 6-1. And it had Bite Force, which of course was 2-6. There must have been another one as well, because there should be 5 there. I don't know what it was, and I don't have the facilities to find out.
We'll never know.
Oh, Duck was the other one, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah. Sounds about right.
It was, yeah, it was.
The thing is, I don't know which fights involving Duck are real fights and which ones are not.
Me either. Let's pretend we didn't have this conversation. If it did have Duck, then it's not had the nicest run here. But again, they all feel fair to me. It required the upset against Bite Force, but that was the only way Bite Force was not going to get here. And I'm doing all of this to stall because we both know what happens in this fight.
Do we?
Well, Lockjaw beat Son of Waiachi fairly comfortably last time they fought.
Doesn't necessarily mean that's the odds I'd give the fight.
No, that's how odds work. If it happens once, it's going to happen that way every time. That's what things like 1 and 6 and 4 and 3 mean. It means that that's the odds of something happening the first time, and after that they happen the same again. That's just probability, man.
Deary me. I think maybe what we're learning is that I possibly have a slight bias towards Son of Waiachi.
The really tricky thing about this is that I still can't find footage of the Lockjaw Son of Waiachi fight to see how close it really was. My memory is that the ass plough worked perfectly. Son of Waiachi was hitting it and kind of going up in the air, which it doesn't really like. The weapon eventually stopped working. How eventual it was, I don't know. But Lockjaw really hadn't taken any punishment until that point. The only mark against it is that it still went to the judges. It wasn't a clean KO, at least. I think to give it in Son of Waiachi's favour, we would have to believe that that win was in some way a fluke. The level of fluke is up for debate, but in some way a fluke.
Right, what numbers are you thinking? You sort of like, the way you've been talking makes me worry that you're about to try and give this a 6-1 in favour of Lockjaw, and I will not stand for it. So what numbers are you thinking?
I was thinking that, but then I realised quite quickly that that probably wasn't fair. I think it's 5-2 rather than 4-3. You might be able to talk me into a 4-3. I'm not giving this in favour of Son of Waiachi.
Okay. In fairness, I'm not sure I'd quite give it in favour of Son of Waiachi either. But I still think that Son of Waiachi has fight-ending power in it.
It does, but it's got to be able to hit a fight-ending piece of the opponent. And again, the Bite Force situation was one where it had the weapon it could hit. For the wedge to be in play, the weapon had to be in danger. Lockjaw's not set up that way. It's backing in with a purely defensive bit of armour. It doesn't have to put anything in the way of that weapon except that bit of armour.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess the danger is that Son of Waiachi never actually stops. It goes to the judges and Lockjaw gets sort of nothing on the aggression front. Or you're looking at a situation where maybe there's a sort of nasty bounce or whatever and a wheel gets taken. Or just a mistake in the driving, but that doesn't seem very likely to me. And it's such a well-designed plough as well. I do absolutely love it.
Yeah. 5 and 2 then. I'll go with that.
Welcome to the 5 and 2 show.
Deary me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Lockjaw.
Yeah.
6 and 7 for Son of Waiachi. I know what you're hoping for.
It is a 7.
Well,
Well, there we go.
you're meant to be more excited by that.
I don't think I could quite force it now. It's too late. The moment has passed.
I think either way, they're very strong machines that you would rarely give odds against. Either of them, if this were real life, either of them ending up in third would be no tragedy whatsoever. So in that sense, we couldn't really lose there,
Yeah.
regardless of our minor allegiances either way.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, you get the pleasure of introducing the final.
No. You need to introduce the final. This is your tournament. This is what we've been working towards for years. I think
This is my fault, yep.
I think that you should introduce the final.
Well then, in that case, I will introduce the final. In the final of Retuncti, aka Ryan's totally not complicated tournament idea, I think it's been lost in the acronym. We have Tombstone versus Minotaur.
I remember when we started Retuncti, I put a call out for a better name than Ryan's totally not complicated tournament idea, and we never got one.
Of course we didn't. First statement I'm going to make is that this should have been the final of Series 2, rather than Bombshell versus Tombstone. I think it would have been a more balanced and entertaining final. Sorry, Mike. Love you. and the whole team. They've really grown on me by having to suffer, you know? Watching them suffer has made me like them again.
Oh dear. Well,
I can't relate to success. It's impossible for me. I can only relate to suffering.
Well, I'm glad that we know how to get into Ryan's good books. You just go through a lot of suffering, and Ryan will like you.
Yep. Plenty of disappointment, ideally with an international audience.
Perfect.
That's really the goal here. That's why I like Craig Danby so much. Do we run through their routes here quickly again? Or was that just a time filling exercise?
I'm not sure there's a lot of value here, you know.
I don't think we're going to doubt any of the odds we've given them, are we? Let's be real here. They've been favourites in every fight, except for Minotaur, which inexplicably had the 3-3 against Blacklist that we don't talk about. That's all we need to say.
Yeah. Well, you've said it now, so that's that. It's covered.
Where are you going with this?
What I'm struggling with is that I know that this fight has happened, and I can't remember really what happened or when it happened. And so I don't know.
Everything is what happened.
Everything happened.
It was the opening main event of 2018, if that helps you.
Is that the one where
And it was
Tombstone got stuck? Or was it Minotaur that got stuck? One of them got stuck.
It was ended because Minotaur was high-centred on a broken piece of floor.
Okay.
And it was every bit the fight it was billed to be. I'm still... Yeah, we've had the conversation of fights to show someone who's new to the sport. If it weren't for the fact that Minotaur is difficult to understand and the ending is a bit weird, absolutely the fight to show people. I still watch that fight and I'm just in awe of how both robots were still running as well as they were, even just 30 seconds in.
Yeah. I'd almost give this in favour of Minotaur. Just.
Really?
Ooh, I've surprised you. Well, for all the same reasons that you're telling me about how Son of Waiachi can't possibly beat Minotaur, I feel like most of that applies to Tombstone as well.
There's one key difference with Tombstone.
Is there now?
Which is that when they went into that fight, they went in with the long bar, which hits very low down, meaning that it's very difficult for Minotaur to get that uppercutting action on the weapon. Son of Waiachi, the weapon rides quite high and hits quite high, so it's far more likely to take that really nasty hit. Tombstone showed very early on that wasn't going to happen to it. It still took a lot of damage, and I guess I have to go against what I said with the Lockjaw one of, yes, Tombstone won this, but the ending was quite a freak thing. Minotaur was in worse shape in terms of the weapon being sort of non-operational, but at the same time, Tombstone looked like in 1 or 2 hits' time, the whole weapon assembly was potentially going to come off. Yeah, it was twisted to hell. Yeah, it was visibly in really bad shape. I think they scrapped that frame after that fight, as I recall. Admittedly, Minotaur also scrapped its 2 frame rails because they were completely cracked in half, but I really believe this is as close as 4-3.
Yeah.
I do think it's for Tombstone.
Okay, I'd sort of like hadn't realised about the where the bar hits and stuff, and this is why I do this with you, because you have the memory and the knowledge for the sort of subtleties of the fight that I just don't think about or realise. So,
it helps that I've watched that fight a lot. Anyone who's listening to this now, I know that you know that was a great fight, but just for your own sake, go watch it again. If you haven't seen it for a while, go watch it again with the fresh eyes and just be impressed, amazed by what actually went on and the hits that were involved. I can't effuse about that fight enough.
Don't let that stop you from trying, then.
I don't know, my rapidly deteriorating voice has stopped me from trying.
Well, I don't think I've got a lot more to add other than saying that while I'm a bit fuzzy on the details of Tombstone versus Minotaur, it is a fight that I remember, and if I remember it, it must have been good. So I second Ryan in saying you should go watch it again, and I also look forward to not taking my own advice.
Every team goes off to BattleBots with one goal. Make that Sam guy from that podcast remember their fight.
Yeah. Well, if you achieve it, then that's the highest praise I can give you. If I remember a fight even slightly 2 years later, then you're doing pretty well.
So what are you saying for odds?
I'm happy to go 4-3. I think that's fair. I think if we could
for Tombstone, I take it.
For Tombstone, yeah. If we could do even odds, I'd consider that as well. But we can't, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, we could, but it would be a wholesale abandonment of everything this stands for.
Indeed.
We have to pick a side. I think Tombstone is the side to pick. Part of me now thinks we could go Minotaur.
I think you're everything. I think, either robot could win, and I think I'd be happy with the result. I can see ways for both robots winning. It's why I sort of think my gut reaction at the beginning was sort of like I'd give this slightly in favour of Minotaur. If Tombstone had the shorter bar that hits higher and stuff, it's like, well, it could probably snap the bar, or it can take their beating and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of like, but it was it's never been like strongly one way or the other. It's sort of like I can think of ways maybe to give this an edge in favour of either robot. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what the role will be. I think I'll be happy with the result. I think either robot's a worthy winner.
I'm trying to think what I was predicting going into that Tombstone Minotaur fight in 2018. I might have been backing Minotaur for it, I think I definitely wanted it to be Minotaur because I was a big Minotaur fan back then. I've cooled on it now because, there are things that aren't verts in the field that are really cool. So it was a want to win, maybe more than a think will win, but it was always a toss-up going into it.
If someone could just go and listen to the backlog of Spinnerproof quickly and find out what we thought of that fight when it happened, please.
I might genuinely do that when we finish, just for my own sanity.
Well.
But let's do this.
This is the final roll, Ryan. This is it.
I don't know how I'm going to feel after this. Will there be a great sense of relief or a great sense of loss?
What are we going to do with Spinnerproof after this?
Oh, God, we're going to have to do that bingo game again, aren't we? No one wants that.
Spoilers, man. Spoilers. I don't know that we can sort of like drag this out any longer. I've got to do the roll. I'm sort of excited and somewhat sad about this.
What are you... So, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 for Tombstone. 5, 6, 7 for Minotaur. What are you hoping for right now? Because I think I'm hoping for Minotaur.
I think I'm probably hoping for Minotaur as well, just because it's just because Tombstone has won so many times. It's sort of like if you got someone to list robots that are likely to win BattleBots, I feel like you've got Tombstone and Bite Force and stuff like high on the list. That wasn't the real roll. I dropped the die. So you got like robots like Tombstone high on that list, and so I kind of want. I know that Minotaur is not low on that list. That's another one that's up there, but I always sort of want the ones that are maybe less obviously going to be chosen by most people as winners. So I kind of want it to be Minotaur, I think. But yeah, it's funny because it's sort of like, well, this is sort of like the inevitable end in some ways. It's sort of like, well, there was no ridiculous upset that consisted throughout the entire thing. It would have been really nice if we had expulsion at the end here. It would have been really funny to me, but yeah.
No, that became stressful fast. I'm glad we don't have Bite Force Tombstone. That's the real thing for me here. That would just be too easy and just be over. I'm glad we got this. Let's stop talking about it. Let's roll it.
Right then, this is it. The final roll. It is a 3. Tombstone have won.
By the skin of their teeth. Well, it's not as close as it could have been, but anyway. Yeah, nothing to justify there. I do, however, want to take this moment of triumph to call back to what you said earlier about, you do this with me because of my memory. And while you didn't say it, I'd like to think that in your mind, the phrase attention to detail was also in there. And on that note of attention to detail, I'd just like you to take a look at the Tombstone slide a little bit closer for me.
What have you done to this slide?
I'd particularly like you to look at the image, which is not, and has not at any point in this whole process been, an image of Tombstone. That's a random King of Bots competitor that was a copy of Tombstone. And I've been waiting for you to notice for 2 bloody years, Sam.
For real?
And this is the real reason I'm so glad that Tombstone got this far.
I've been looking at this robot and it's not Tombstone. Oh, man.
It even has the little King of Bots graphics glint in random places. I really thought at some point you might spot that, but no. Here we are.
I did spot like the weird sort of like colour thing around the wheel there, but I just sort of always dismissed it for reasons. It's not the same. I'm
so glad it made the final so that could be the last thing.
What an ending. What an ending to Return to. Sam doesn't even know what Tombstone looks like. God damn it. I was expecting to see that you'd like Photoshop like a tiny little nut somewhere as your prediction that it would win, but
I wouldn't put that much effort in, come on.
It's like the wrong bar shape as well. I hang my head in shame. I feel like I've let, even though no one else has seen these images as I'm aware of, I feel like I've let the entire audience down. Well done, Ryan. Well done. You got me.
I am the real winner.
The winner of Retuncti inevitably is Ryan. I'm genuinely annoyed at myself. It's another one of these frustrating things where like it's always looked a bit odd, but I've never cared enough to question you about it. But now the fact that I'm telling you this after you told me the thing that's wrong with it means that you're less inclined to believe me. And like, did I truly think it was that wrong? And the answer is no.
I absolutely believe you, and I absolutely believe that you wouldn't have seen it as important enough to interrupt an episode recording for.
Unbelievable.
It's called Cracked Sword, by the way, or at least that's the translation.
You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/83. And there you can find links to all the stuff we've been talking about today, including a picture of Not Tombstone. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us your favourite tomb clone robots. I look forward to not being able to identify them as anything other than Tombstone. What's like really killing me about this is that now that you've mentioned it, it's so obviously not Tombstone, and it's just I've
waited so fucking long.
Well done. Well done, sir. Well done.
Well, it is over. I'm going to stop recording.